Today we invite you on an exciting journey through centuries and continents to explore one of the most iconic and unique cities on the planet, London. Our journey will begin from the early, troubled times, when London was just a small Roman fortress, and will continue to the present day, when it is a real metropolis known all over the world. We will follow its transformation from a medieval village into an international centre of culture, trade and politics, and see how the city experienced devastating wars. Prepare for an exciting journey through the pages of history filled with amazing discoveries and amazing stories about how London has become what it is today. Fasten your seatbelts, it will be a truly exciting journey. London in the Middle Ages. London, which was founded by the Romans in 43 AD, was named Londinium. The choice of this strategically advantageous location on the banks of the River Thames was justified by its convenient access to the interior of Britain and the possibility of control over trade routes. During Roman rule, the city became an important commercial and administrative centre, with an extensive network of streets and an impressive urban infrastructure. However, with the fall of the Roman Empire in the early 5th century AD, Londinium declined. The city was abandoned, its buildings were destroyed, and the roads were overgrown. Over the next few centuries, London remained a relatively unimportant and little-known settlement until the Anglo-Saxons began its revival in the 7th century. Gradually, the small settlement began to gain importance again as a commercial and cultural centre. A turning point in the history of the city came in 1066, when the Norman conquest led by William the Conqueror brought radical changes to the appearance of London. William ordered the construction of the Tower, which not only it became a symbol of Norman power, but also a key defensive fortification. This grandiose structure, which began construction in 1066, will eventually become one of the most famous sights of the city. Medieval London is a world of contrasts. The narrow, winding streets were filled with wooden houses, often built on several floors, and they were close to each other, which gave the city a characteristic appearance. In the markets located in various parts of the city, you could find goods from all over, from Britain and abroad. These markets not only provided residents with food, but were also a place of social interaction and trade. By the 13th century, London had become an important centre of trade and crafts. During this period, it is being built London Bridge, which was not just a key crossing over the Thames, but also a busy shopping hub surrounded by shops and residential buildings. The city is fast it grew and developed, and by the 14th century, its population reached about 50,000 people, which was a significant number for that time. The streets were filled not only with residents, but also with constantly working artisans, merchants, and their customers. Nevertheless, life in medieval London was full of challenges. Outbreaks of the plague, such as the Black Death, which broke out in 1346 to 1353, claimed the lives of almost a third of the city's population. This terrible epidemic has not only reduced the population, but also had a lasting impact on the economy and the social structure of London. After this disaster, the city was slowly recovering, and significant efforts were made to improve sanitation and strengthen urban infrastructure. Fires were another constant source of danger. Narrow streets and dense buildings, combined with wooden buildings, created ideal conditions for the spread of fire. Frequent fires destroyed houses and buildings, which led to the need for restoration and reconstruction. The city authorities realized the need for strict construction rules and control over the use of materials to prevent further disasters. These measures included more fire-resistant materials and the development of new architectural standards, which over time helped to improve London's fire resistance. Thus, medieval London was a city that repeatedly overcame difficulties and trials, and with each generation became an increasingly important centre on the map of Europe. Its history during this period is not only evidence of endurance, but also the basis for further growth and development in the following centuries. Renaissance and the Tudor era. By the beginning of the 16th century, London had already formed as one of the most important trading centres in Europe, but the true heyday of the city began with the reign of the Tudor dynasty. The reign of Henry VIII (1509 to 1547) and his daughter Elizabeth I (1558 to 1603) was a time of significant change and prosperity for London. Henry VIII, the king whose reign became a landmark in English history, played an important role in the transformation of the city. His reforms in the church, known as the Reformation, led to the secularization of monastic lands and their transfer to private one's hands. These changes have had a significant impact on the architecture and urban landscape of London. Monasteries and churches that previously occupied important plots of land were destroyed or transformed, and their territories began to be used for the construction of new buildings, shopping and residential areas. The reign of Henry VIII also became a time of cultural flourishing. He supported the development of the arts, which contributed to the creation of a unique cultural atmosphere in London. One of the most striking cultural milestones of that time was the theatre. In 1599, just 30 years after the beginning of the reign of Elizabeth I, the famous Globe was built, a theatre that became home to the works of William Shakespeare. Shakespeare, whose plays embodied the spirit of the era, presented his works on stage the Globe, which attracted the attention of both local residents and foreign guests. The population of London grew rapidly during this period. By the end of the 16th century, it reached about 200,000 people. This growth was driven by both economic prosperity and the migration of people from rural areas to the city in search of better opportunities. London became the centre not only of trade, but also of intellectual life, attracting scientists, writers and artists. The Elizabethan era 1558 to 1603 was a time of flourishing art, literature and science. London has become home to many prominent artists, including Shakespeare, who wrote his greatest works during this period. In addition to the theatre, science and education developed in London. In 1592, a few years before the beginning of the reign of Elizabeth I, St. John's College was founded, which became an important centre of intellectual life. A significant event in the development of London was the construction of the Royal Exchange in 1571. Built by William Sidney, 1st Earl of Leicester, this exchange was designed for trading and exchange. It quickly became a key centre of international trade and finance, which contributed to the further economic growth of the city and strengthened its position as an important trading hub. In addition, the construction of new buildings, bridges and roads began at this time. One of the most important construction projects was the improvement of infrastructure of the city, which included the expansion of London Bridge and the construction of new streets. These improvements not only contributed to the growth of the city, but also significantly increased its accessibility and convenience for residents and travellers. Thus, the Tudor era was a time of significant change and prosperity for London. The city has transformed into a cultural and economic centre, becoming an important hub on trade routes and home to many prominent personalities. These transformations laid the foundation for further growth and development London in the following centuries. The Great Fire and Restoration. The year 1666 became a key moment in the history of London due to the Great Fire, which radically changed the subsequent appearance of the city. The fire, which began on September 2, 1666, in a bakery on Padding Lane, spread quickly and destroyed most of medieval London within 4 days. The flames engulfed more than 13,000 homes, 87 churches, including the famous St. Paul's Church, and important public buildings. By September 6th, the fire was completely extinguished, but the damage was already enormous. Although the Great Fire left the city in ruins, it also provided a unique opportunity for radical renewal and rebuilding of London. The most prominent figure in this process was the architect Christopher Wren. Under the guidance of Wren began a large-scale reconstruction of the city, which included the design and construction of many new buildings. One of the most famous results of his work was St. Paul's Cathedral, which was built on the site of an old cathedral destroyed by fire. The new building has become a symbol of the restoration of the city and an example of the Baroque architectural style. The restoration of London included not only the construction of new buildings, but also improvement of urban infrastructure. One of the main tasks was to expand the streets, which were narrow and crowded before the fire. This change allowed not only to improve transport conditions, but also to make the city safer. At this time, the construction of new bridges across the Thames began, which helped to improve communication between different parts of the city and facilitated movement. Improving sanitation has also become a priority. The Great Fire showed the shortcomings of the existing water supply and sewerage system, and in the following over the years, measures have been taken to improve them. New sanitary standards and building regulations included the use of more refractory materials, which helped to avoid a repeat of similar disasters in the future. An important step in this direction was the introduction of a water pump system and the creation of new fire stations, which ensured more effective firefighting. In addition, the reconstruction of the city included the creation of new public spaces and parks. The emergence of areas such as Covent Garden and Lincoln's Inn Fields has made London more comfortable to live and relax in. These places not only served as a space for recreation, but also became centres of cultural life, where various events and public gatherings were held. As a result of these transformations, London has become an important centre of banking and financial transactions. In the 17th century, thanks to the restoration and improvement of urban infrastructure, London strengthened its position as an important financial centre. The formation of institutions such as the Bank of England, founded in 1690, contributed to the further growth and prosperity of the city. Thus, despite the destruction caused by the Great Fire, the recovery period has become a time of significant transformations and improvements. The reconstruction of the city made it possible to create a safer, more modern and comfortable London, which became an important centre of culture, trade and finance in the following centuries. The Industrial Revolution. In the 18th and 19th centuries, London became not only the centre of the British Empire, but also a key world trade hub. The Industrial Revolution that began at the end in the 18th century, it produced profound transformations in the city that affected all aspects of urban life. At that time, London was experiencing rapid development associated with rapid population growth, the construction of new factories and plants, and significant changes in infrastructure. By 1800, London was already one of the largest cities in the world, but it was not until the 1810s that its massive expansion began. As industrial activity increased and demand for jobs increased, London's population grew rapidly. In 1801, about 1 million people lived in the city, and by the middle of the 19th century, the population was already more than 2.5 million. London has become the first city in the world to reach such a demographic milestone. London's infrastructure began to develop rapidly. The railways, which began to be built in the 1830s, connected the city with other regions of the country, contributing to the growth of trade and the movement of goods. An important achievement was London Bridge and other new bridges that have improved transport links across the River Thames. In 1863, the London Underground was opened, known as the first subway in the world. This was a revolutionary step in public transport, which significantly reduced the travel time around the city and reduced the traffic load. However, the rapid development of London has also brought significant problems. The city faced overpopulation, which led to a deterioration of sanitary conditions. Narrow streets crowded with houses, often without proper sewerage and water supply systems, have become a place for the spread of various diseases. In the Victorian era, epidemics such as cholera became a frequent occurrence. One of the most significant achievements in solving these problems was the construction of a new sewerage system under the supervision of engineer Joseph Bazalgette. Started in 1858, this system was completed in 1875 and significantly improved the sanitary conditions in the city. Bazalgette designed a complex network of pipes that effectively diverted wastewater outside the city, which helped reduce the number of cholera epidemics and improve the overall quality of life. In addition, the rapid development of industry and technology has contributed to London's economic growth. The emergence of new factories, machine building plants, and trading enterprises has made London an important centre of industrial production. Culture and education were also actively developing at this time. In 1851, the year saw the Great Exhibition at Crystal Palace, which showcased the achievements of British industry and art. During this period, the first public libraries, museums, and galleries began to open in London. In 1852, the British Library was opened, which became an important centre for the storage and research of cultural and scientific materials. In 1856, the Museum of Natural History was founded, which played a significant role in the development of science and education. London has become a place of intersection of science, art and industry, creating a unique atmosphere of innovation and progress. The active construction of public buildings and architectural monuments, which reflected both technological development and social changes, also dates back to this time. Thus, the Industrial Revolution made London one of the world's leading centres in the field of trade, industry and culture. Despite the problems that arose, the city managed to adapt to the new conditions and continued its development, becoming a symbol of progress and innovation. 20th century, War and Reconstruction. An asterisk with the outbreak of World War I in 1939, London became a target for air raids by Nazi Germany. The most devastating bombings are known like the Blitz from the English word blitz, which means lightning strike, which began in September 1940 and lasted until May 1941. During these months, the city was subjected to intense bombardment, which led to the destruction of more than 40% of residential buildings, the destruction of many historical buildings and significant loss of life. Only on the first night of the raids, known as Blitzkrieg, more than 500 bombs were dropped. Fires and destruction began in the city centre. As a result of this debacle, London lost many significant historical and cultural monuments. Among the victims was Covent Garden, part of Westminster Abbey and many buildings in the financial district of the city. During the war, the government and citizens made many efforts to protect the city and its inhabitants, including creating underground shelters and organising the evacuation of children. After the end of World War I in 1945, the process of large-scale reconstruction. In the early post-war years, the British government implemented a reconstruction plan that included both the repair of destroyed buildings as well as the construction of new residential areas and infrastructure modernisation. One of the significant projects was the Wilkinson Plan, on the basis of which the areas most affected by the bombing were reconstructed. In the 1950s and 1960s, London witnessed large-scale construction projects. New residential areas were built, such as Brimers Park and the East End, which helped solve the housing shortage problem. Restoration of historical buildings has also become a priority. The famous Westminster Abbey, damaged during the war, has been restored, and reconstruction of other damaged monuments has begun. The 1960s and 1970s were the years of cultural renaissance, which went down in history as swinging London. During this period, the city became the centre of world culture and fashion. The emergence of iconic bands such as the Beatles and the Rolling Stones has made London a global pop culture hub. These groups have not only defined the musical trends of that time, but also contributed to the formation of a unique style that inspired young people around the world. This period was also characterized by the active development of the fashion industry. Designer Mary Quant and her colleagues working in the King's Road area became symbols of the fashion movement that defined the style of the 1960s. Iconic stores such as Bieber and Carnaby Street became the centres of the fashion world and attracted young people from all over the world. The 1980s and 1990s were a time of further transformation and modernisation London. One of the key areas was the development of docks and Thames embankments. Redevelopment of areas such as Docklands began in 1981 when the government, UK and private investors have launched a project to transform the old docks into modern business and residential areas. This project has significantly transformed the landscape of the city, turning it into an attractive place for business and housing. At this time, there was also a large-scale upgrade of the transport infrastructure. In 1999, the reconstruction of the London Underground was completed with the introduction of new lines and improvements to existing stations, which contributed to increased comfort and accessibility of public transport. In addition, London continued to attract international investment and develop your economy. The city became an important financial centre, which contributed to its growth and development. During this period, the flow of tourists also increased, attracted by both historical attractions and new cultural and entertainment offers. Modern London. Today, London is one of the largest and most influential megacities in the world, which plays a key role in the financial, cultural and political spheres. The city preserves its historical heritage by combining modern skyscrapers with historical monuments and continues to develop as a centre of global influence. London is one of the world's leading financial centres. The city is home to the London Stock Exchange, which is considered one of the oldest and largest stock exchanges in the world. According to the data of 2023, London ranks third in the global financial ranking after New York and Hong Kong. Here are located the headquarters of many international banks and financial institutions, such as HSBC, Barclays and Lloyds of London. An important event in the financial sector was the opening of a new business district in 2021 in London City, which has become an important hub for financial technologies and startups. London's cultural wealth is also invaluable. The city is known for its famous museums and galleries such as the British Museum, the National Gallery and Tate Modern. The British Museum, founded in 1753, is one of the oldest museums in the world and houses more than 8 million exhibits. In 2023, it was visited by more than 6 million people. Tate Modern, opened in 2000, presents contemporary art and attracts millions of visitors annually. There are many theatres in London, including the Globe, where Shakespeare once staged his plays. In 2022, the 400th anniversary of the great poet's death was celebrated, which was widely celebrated with theatrical and cultural events. The city regularly hosts international festivals such as the London Film Festival, which presents the work of leading filmmakers from around the world. London continues to attract students and academics from all over the world thanks to its leading educational institutions. Oxford and Cambridge universities, although located outside the city, have close ties with London educational institutions. University of London, University College London and Imperial College London are among the most prestigious in the world. In 2023, Imperial College was recognised as one of the best universities by the QS World University Rankings. Modern London is also focused on solving environmental problems. In 2019, the city announced a goal to become carbon neutral by 2030. To achieve this goal, measures are being taken to reduce carbon emissions, to improve air quality and the development of public transport. In 2021, a project was launched to create a new green belt in the southern part of the city, which includes parks and natural areas that contribute to improving the urban environment. In addition, London is actively developing public transport, including the expansion of the metro network and the introduction of environmentally friendly buses. In 2022, the first fully electric buses were put into operation, which began to run along the central routes of the city. It also continues to expand bicycle infrastructure, including a network of bike paths and bike rental points. Modern London is a dynamically developing metropolis that successfully combines historical heritage and modern achievements. The city retains its uniqueness, attracts international attention and continues to play a key role on the world stage in the financial, cultural and environmental spheres. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to our Urban Evolution channel so that you don't miss new videos. Leave comments and share your impressions of London. See you soon.